And I think part of the power in the discussion around rape culture is also pointing out that rape perhaps is the extreme, right? Like rape and domestic abuse and domestic violence. That's like on the far end. That's like when rape culture, I suppose, manifests itself in all its violence and all its evil and everything that comes with it. But the other side, I think, of it is the fact that it is possible for one to, or almost impossible rather, for me as a woman to walk down the street without being violated. So, when I think of days where, I may be walking down the road and I'm going to the shop, if I'm walking past a construction site, or if I'm walking past a bergie, like the men there own my body, and you will walk past and you'll be catcalled and you'll be referred to in ways that you almost can't react fully because it's not considered that bad. Like, you can't get upset about that, because why are you getting upset? The man is just giving you a compliment about your beautiful butt, or your little waist, which I don't have, or whatever. And so it's almost like, societally speaking, we neither have the right to respond and fight it, nor do we have the right nor do we feel like it's okay for us to just accept it and move on. And I think that's sort of the double contradiction that we find ourselves in. So, young woman, you are not your breasts, you are not your hips, you are not your womb, you are not your vagina, you are not property, you are not a thing, you are not. You are human, and you have the right to be. Young woman, you are not your breasts, you are not your lips, you are not your legs, you are not your bottom, you are not your clitoris, you are not property, you are not a thing, you are human, and you have the right to be. And so as a woman at our university campuses, and as I just mentioned now, have been demonstrating in recent protests, no one, and absolutely no one, has the right to our bodies without our consent. And I think that even if we were to walk down the streets naked in all of our glory, with our breasts dancing in the noonday sun and our bottoms demanding to be honored as they led the way to our freedom as women, we would still be the only owners of these sacred carriers of life. At no point do we ever cede the authority or the ownership that we have over our bodies to any other individual by virtue of the clothes that we wear or don't wear, or by virtue of the places we go to or don't go to. That a woman's lived experiences and access to humanity is to be censored by a world dominated by male privilege is unjust. And therefore we cannot live our lives in fear of rapists, and neither should we live our lives in the kind of reductionism that forces us to make ourselves smaller, whether this is physically, intellectually, or spatially. We cannot and we should not make ourselves skinnier or lighter or curvier in order to meet the international demand that men across the world have placed on our bodies and our beauty. We cannot and we should not have to tailor our clothes to suit the tastes of men that surround us in order to exempt ourselves from being raped. Our dressing and our undressing is not for the pleasures and the comfort of men. We cannot and we should not reduce our ability to claim space in the boardrooms and the government houses of South Africa because we dread the disrespect of male colleagues, or because our intellectual contributions are not considered as valid as theirs. To make ourselves smaller, women, would be to relegate ourselves to the endnotes of history books and forego our place as the authors and the custodians of history as it starts, continues, and even as it ends the way we know it. As women, we owe it to ourselves to rise and break down every barrier and every limitation that is placed on us by the spaces that we occupy simply because we carry a womb. And so, to the women of this nation, we are not our vaginas, we are not our wombs, we are not our breasts. We are human, and we have a right to be. And so even when we have been raped, even when we have been violated, even when we have been abused, we are still not our vaginas. We are still not our wombs, and we are still not our breasts. Our honor is not tied to our biological attributes. And so it is against this backdrop that I want to situate my address today, in the context of dismantling the master's house. I would like to quote a Facebook status that was recently shared by Ntabaleng Morake, a UCT student. One of the things that I was taught as a child, she says, was that my body attracts and will always attract violence. It is an uncomfortable thought to know that everywhere I go, I will be butchered and slaughtered until I yearn not to exist anymore, unless the violence kills me first. The fear of being raped, she continues, has always been one that is tattooed very deeply in the walls of my heart. I'm reminded of a time in grade 11. I was walking to the police station to certify documentation so that I could apply for admission to UCT. The police station was quite far, and I'd often recruit my friends who did not necessarily want to study at UCT to accompany me, because it was never safe for me to walk all the way to the police station and back on my own. The irony. So on this particular day, I got someone to walk me, and approximately 5 minutes away from the station, my friend and I were approached by 4 men who were walking the opposite direction from us. When this happened, I was conversing with my friend until one of them said to me, "The way ukhuluma kamnandi ngakhona, I wonder ukuthi ebhedini ukhala kanjani." In English, this translates to "the way you speak so beautifully, I wonder how you cry and moan in bed." The 3 other men he was with began to laugh. What he said was considered plausible, and they found joy and entertainment in it. While I tried continuing with my journey, "Focus, Nteba, focus, you are almost there. Don't mind him," I repeatedly said to myself in my head. But I was angry and violated, and I felt unsafe. But what could I do? I kept on walking. No reply, no demonstration of my anger, nothing. But my rage was doing the complete opposite. I wanted to punch him or violate him back or make him feel as unsafe as I had felt then. My friend could see how bruised I was. And so in an attempt to make me feel better, she said, "You know these Nyope boys, they have no respect." Whilst then, back in 2012, I appreciated the efforts of my friend to make me feel better. Spending time reflecting on rape culture this year, I'm made aware of how violent her response was. She excused the violence and threat that my body and psyche were subjected to by making a claim that I shouldn't care because the act of violence was conducted by a supposedly intoxicated person. Moreover, she reduced my safety, my entire safety and well-being in the face of what was a clear act of violence, to an issue of respect. I did not want those men's respect. I am not made of or from respect, so I did not want their respect. I wanted to feel safe and be safe. This happened 5 minutes away from a police station. If anything, I was supposed to feel safe there. And so for me, it is that if we're going to move forward, every single one of us must recognize our complicity in the maintenance of an oppressive system. My friend Fezi refers to women who have internalized sexism and encourage and uphold these oppressive standards against women. She refers to them as patriarchal princesses, women who have been so battered and brutalized by patriarchy that the only way that they are able to participate in society is to internalize it and accept it. Cis heterosexual men who claim to be allies in this decolonization struggle, but cannot even try to engage in the politics of gender and non-binary sexuality, they must acknowledge their complicity. White women whose tears matter more than anyone else's globally must also acknowledge their complicity in global patriarchy and women's oppression. And white men who have never been convicted and who have never atoned for centuries of raping black women must also acknowledge their complicity. This struggle is going to be intersectional, or it's not going to be at all. And in my mind, I think the same thing. So fees must fall for everyone, or they mustn't fall at all. That's how I see it. So for me, it's that if men are not going to acknowledge the ways in which their very existence can be violating and violent to women in those same supposedly revolutionary spaces, if they're not going to acknowledge that, I do not think that women should even consider putting their bodies on the line. Because in my mind, there's no difference between being violated by a white man or a black man. Violation is violation, right? And that for me is the thing. So I myself am not prepared to fight in a struggle that will just change the color of the emperor at the table. I'm not interested in that.